course. You can become a friend, a mentor, a driver, a manager. I mean, there's so many different things that you have to wear. And so one of the things we try to do is kind of incorporate both of those roles of a coach into team, which I think Ken did an amazing job of. And then also now as you build culture, that's one of your roles, is you are the leader and the manager of culture. I love this quote. We've got a good friend of ours named Chris Allen that has a company called All About People, does a lot of corporate training. And one of his big things, and I agree with him 100%, is it's great to set a culture and a standard, but if you start to tolerate things, then you're losing your standard. So really what comes down to is not, our culture is not the standards we set, it's actually what we're willing to tolerate. What we're willing to tolerate, right? Which is tough. Because, you know, your best player, and it's great because Douglas is one of my former assistant coaches. So we had this great conversation this past year he had his best player on his team. He said he's trying to set the standard. Guys are coming late all the time. Set the standard. You can't be late. Guy's still late. Okay, can't be late. I'm serious. Can't be late. Okay, now I'm going to have to suspend you from training. No one really cared. Took a game away. Everyone kind of got better. Best player, first round, NAI national tournament. Late. Didn't play him. Tough, but he didn't tolerate it because he knew, I'm just building a program. It was his first year. Cool thing is, it came back. First meeting, 8:30 in the morning, January, cold. Every player there on time. I wonder why, right? Pretty cool. So what we tolerate, reward, and repeat is really what culture is. For me, you know, us as coaches, we have two main roles when we're trying to build culture. So a leader and a manager. So a leader is this visionary, creating values. You have to have belief. You have to develop belief. You have to establish roles and the value of those roles. So you have to establish everybody's part in the whole. Like Ken was saying, like everybody needs to know where we're headed, what we're doing. And we have to be mission focused. So it's way more long term. You have to be the guy or the girl or the leader who creates the vision down the road and creates that, like, this is that big, hairy goal for those of you who have read Good to Great. Does anyone know? Put your hand up if you know what the Stockdale paradox is. Also in Good to Great, Admiral Stockdale was he was the leader, the commander of the fleet in the, I think it was Vietnam or Korean War. And he ended up going to prison, and they had all these POWs in there, and they all knew he was like the leader of the group. So couple cool things is, one, he developed a communication system through sweeping and knocking so they could all feel connected. Pretty neat. Second thing he did is he established some limits to where they could give bits of information if they were being tortured. So he was really did a really good job of keeping people connected and leading in a very tough circumstance. But the Stockdale paradox is that keeping belief, even though your current circumstances may tell you that the end is not going to be what you want. And how he came up with that is the people in the prison, they said, well, who made it? Like, who would make it out? And he said, well, the ones who just kept the belief, even though they couldn't see the end in the moment. And he said the ones who didn't make it out were the ones they died of a broken heart, is what he said. And the way they died of a broken heart was, Easter would come, and they thought, well, I'll be out by Easter. And then they weren't out by Easter. And they're like, oh. And then it was summer or, you know, whatever holidays they set up. And so eventually they couldn't make it because they died of a broken heart. They kept setting these expectations, but they lost the belief that it was going to happen. So the Stockdale paradox is maintaining belief even though your current circumstances don't tell you that belief may come true. And that's what we have to do as leaders, because you look at your team and go, oh man, we don't look great right now. But you can't give that over to your players because they'll never believe that the outcome might be possible. Jurgen Klopp said this. He's my favorite, by far my favorite leader. I just think he does a great job of this, like being a leader that projects belief in his players. He said that in the transfer window, we're trying to get the best players possible, the most talent by far. We're spending as much money as we can. We're trying to get the best. But the day the transfer window closes, we have the best players in the world. It's a cool way to look at it, right? So no matter what you look at, and I felt that way a little bit this morning. I'm like, guys we're missing some stuff. But those were the players I had, so I was going to try and get the best out of them I could. That's our responsibility as a coach. And so that's what a leader does. A leader sets the vision, doesn't lose sight of that, maintains it, keeps it going, flows belief in, just everything I can do to empower them. Now, the manager does the day-to-day stuff, right? And so for me, you set up standards, expectations, you reinforce those. You have to over-communicate what those are. One of my favorite things I learned from Mark was you have to tell players, you have to tell them again, then you have to tell them what you told them. Pretty sure we've all done that before, right? Tell players, tell them again, tell them what you told them, right? So reinforce or tolerate stuff, over-communicate those things, right? I put that in there twice. That's important, right? That was not a mistake. That was actually done on purpose. Over-communicate, 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 and then build player relationships. That's the day-to-day, right? Day-to-day with the vision in mind. Don't lose sight of that big, audacious thing that until the last game is played, you believe in. No matter how bad it goes, if you lose sight of that, there's no way your players are going to do that. I have certainly not gotten that right all the time. I've been fired from a job, and Ken talked about it. You start to coach out of fear, and you start to control stuff because now it becomes your image, and that's real life, man. I got to provide for my family and all those kind of things, okay? So we're going to focus on this one. Love this. Everyone's got different thoughts about Jordan Peterson, but I love this aspect. This is from him and Tim Tebow little podcast. So.
Oldest story we have, likely, is the dragon fight story. It's really old, thousands of years. And so the idea is a quest into the unknown to find the dragon that guards the treasure, the voluntary confrontation with the dragon, and then the receipt of the treasure. And so there's a core idea there, which is that there are treasures, but the treasures are guarded, and they're guarded by something terrible. And so you can say, well, wherever there's a treasure, there's going to be a dragon. But you can reverse that equally, and you can say, wherever there's a dragon, there's going to be a treasure. And so now you walk through your life, and some horrible dragon emerges, like you have an old child, for example, or something arbitrary and terrible, and you can be crushed by that and get bitter and resentful, and no bloody wonder. But you could also think, okay, dragon, there's got to be a treasure around here somewhere. And that gives you a stance on the problem, which is the stance of a contender. It's like, oh, we have a major league challenge here, and that could force us to develop.
So I showed this to my team every year at the beginning, that we have to chase. We're chasing. We want to be the predator, right? We want to be the contender. We're the one who's chasing what's happening, what's possible, what's out there. And I love that aspect. Like, man, just think about reframing that. Like, oh my gosh, this is terrible versus like, this is terrible, but there's something there. Otherwise, it wouldn't be guarded. And it's a stupid analogy of the dragon, but you get the idea. So for me, that's what a leader is. If I was going to simplify it, no matter how great the challenge is, can you maintain continued belief, and can you get that out of your players? Can you make them see that even though they fail, right, they can overcome that? There's always a new day. Sun always comes up, right? So players, I think, deal with a what if or even if, right? So as a player, you get on the ball and like you give it away, and then the next thing you think is, oh no, what if I give it away again? Versus if you can empower your players with, even if you gave it away, you still got to go show, you got to get in that pocket, you have to get turned, and you have to try, because that's what our team does, right? Where there's a dragon, where you've made a mistake, there's a chance for improvement. That is what a leader does. Never lose sight of the ultimate goal, which is how can you transform your players' lives? So for me, you have to create values, and you have to create expectations within your team. So this is ours. Again, this is not this is not rocket science. It's not something that, I would say you need to go take and use on your team. I just wanted to use it as an example. So what we thought was important as a collective group and a staff is that we wanted our players to be great teammates and fully invested in whatever we're doing. Just a minimum expectation. That's why it's at the foundation of it. We thought a great teammate, and again, what we did was we sat with our players because we wanted buy-in from them. We wanted them to say, we wanted to set clear, we need to do something special here. It's going to take special action, special personality, special commitment. So what we did is we said, okay, what is a great teammate? What does that mean to you? And we asked them. And so we sit in a room like this, and guys are popcorning out, have the old school whiteboard, and then there's a lot of redundancy. We just take all that stuff away, and we keep the key ones. So we came up with dependable, self-controlled, joyful, respectful, and forgiving. Important. You want to be a great teammate? Takes those things. Fully invested, committed, intentional, passionate, right? Ownership mentality. These are their words that they came up with. So we built this foundation. Okay, everybody understand that. And guess what? Here's the thing, tolerated. If you're not a great teammate and fully invested, we're going to work in grace, but you're going to get uninvited to be a part of our process. It's a really 2025 way to say that we're going to let you go because you don't get to buy into what we're doing. You get uninvited, right? You're uninvited. You guys know what I'm saying. So you get uninvited. I've definitely uninvited players, but like there's a drag in there. It's a hard conversation. Made kids cry for sure. It's terrible, but I wasn't willing to sacrifice everybody else for the one guy, right? Didn't always get it right, but in my heart, that's what I was always after. No matter how hard the drag in conversation was, the treasure on the other end was the right stuff for everybody else. We came up with 5 pillars, and ultimately at the top, again, I think Mark talked about this, we wanted to be competitively great because at Liberty University, we have a target on our back, right? We're stepping out there, and we did this. This was my first couple years. It was a real challenge, and then I really enjoyed it. And we would play games, win, lose, or draw. We'd ask the other team to pray for us. We'd go every other guy, Division I college soccer. And I mean, Wake Forest, Clemson, UNC, Western Illinois. It didn't matter where we were playing. Didn't matter what we were doing. We'd pray with that other team. So what we did on the field, we wanted to be competitively great because we knew, and Mark said this, if we didn't earn their respect, our testimony was going to be useless. Didn't mean we had to win the game, but we certainly had to compete. We had to be fierce and tough, right? And we had to get after it, and we had to earn their respect by our performance, the way we treat each other, the way we treat our referee. Did my guys fail at that? Oh, 100%. Did I fail at that? Oh, for sure I got that wrong, right? I got a couple great pictures of me kicking a chair probably. Didn't always keep my composure, for sure. Yes, Ryan?
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate that point Kelly just said. So Liberty's playing at Clemson. My son's on Clemson. It's a miserable night. It's like pouring rain. Like Clemson wins. They ended the game early. The weather was so bad. But man, Liberty guys, they come over. They're going to the locker room, sharing gospel. Just praying with the guys. And as my son, a believer on this worldly team, that was huge for him. That's a lot of good times.
It's cool. Yeah, it was a fun night. Yeah, it was a fun night. And the other thing that we try to impart to our guys is, if you don't go in and you don't compete, those worldly guys are going to be like, whatever, man. I got no time for you. Really, I got nothing for you. So you have to earn that a little bit. But the other thing we knew too was there's always a believer on the other team. And if we go in and we do a terrible job of competing and not representing Christ well in that game, we have ruined their testimony. We have ruined their testimony. So we took responsibility for that because we knew that. And I think that's the same way as coaches. We're going to go out and say, yeah, go. And imagine you lose it on a coach and then you see him in church on Sunday or her in church on Sunday. That's a problem, right? So again, our guys came up with these, right? We massaged it. I like to, it's benevolent manipulation, however you want to say it. So I always, kind of massage them. Whenever the guys did the board, like magically, the 5 words that I really knew needed to be up there, somehow they end up there, if you know what I'm saying. So we put team over self, right? For me, again, we were a Christian team, so that was easy in a way because we could call them on that. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourself. So we were always pushing that, Philippians 2, right? We build unity. We just do little things like we always high five, always shake a hand after training, right? We just ask all our guys to do. We honor God because that was important to us, right? We chase excellence and we're purposeful in what we do. And then the top 5 words that the guys came up with are there. You can see those. And then we really tried to help them, and I can't take credit for that. It's one of my assistant coaches, but I love. He really came up with this is nice because you can all of our players play games, so you can level up. You can be at level 1, 2, or 3. So level 0 down to 3. So I won't read those to you, but I just thought it was a really cool way to say it that level 0 is not really okay on our team. It's really not. It's the bare minimum. Like you're barely a teammate if you can do that. We want to be great teammates and fully invested. So you got to get a minimum. You got to get to level 1 and then 2. So maybe you can't read it, but I'll just do. We put team over self. Level 0 is cheer for the people you like or your roommates. That's level 0. So you don't get to do that on our team, right? That's everywhere else, but that's not our standard. right? Level 1, cheer for the team to succeed. Level 2, cheer for the guy in your position that you're competing with to succeed. And then level 3, help the guy you're competing with become the best player he can be, because it's going to make you better. Now, look, that's probably shooting for the stars, but we talked about it. You're trying to be a leader. Okay, we don't ever lose sight of excellence. We're chasing it, in pursuit of it, and we're purposeful for that. So this is kind of how we did it. I talked about this earlier. I think what you're really after as a leader, when you're trying to paint a picture of what the expectations are, is you're trying to get your players to move from what if something happens, because it's going to happen in a game. They're going to make a mistake. They're going to fail. They might get hurt. There's all those things. You know, they might literally, you might get laughed at, might get made fun of afterwards because something terrible happens to you. We used to have this award, or a D award, whatever you want to call it, called the sweet spot on the Eagles team. And so, like, you knew if you had a terrible touch in the game, there's a great chance you're definitely going to get nominated. And there's a good chance you're going to get the sweet spots, the recreational little rubber things that people, right? So you'd roll up to practice going, oh man, like, here we go. And everyone's like, all right, sweet spot award, Ryan Live. Ah. Then you got to wear them all training, right? So it's coming. Oh yeah, 100%. But the idea is, can you move? And I think this is what a leader does, is no matter what you see, can you get them to even if this is a scary game, we really want to win it. Man, we want this game. Because you know what they're thinking is, what if we lose? So can you as a leader get them to, even if we may lose the game, we're still going to go for it. There's bravery, there's courage there. Teach them the courage. To me, that's what a leader is. When you talk about building culture, you're leading in that direction. And I love this. What if it does? At least if you're guilt and shame. What if this happens? Oh, I'm scared. What if I make a mistake? Oh, I'm going to feel guilty because I let my team down. And then I'm going to be shamed because I did that. So we're fighting to get our players into their true self, knowing they're more than enough, abundance, nothing to prove, vulnerable, humble. So culture creates that freedom to go and fail and go for it and risk and have the courage to do so. That's what a leader does when you're building culture. Talking about values, these are the values Sporting Kansas City. So just give you another little example. So when you're thinking about the values you want to try and create, these are 3 from Ken, and I love this. A buddy of mine coaches at University of Lynchburg. Willingness to run. It's one of theirs. I love that. It's a cool way to look at it. Willingness to run. Okay. The next part is a manager. This is Thomas Frank. He is now at Tottenham. Not doing as well now, but that's the pressure. That's the job, right? So I'll let you listen to this, and then we'll talk about being a manager versus a leader.
The way I treat my players, or our players, the way we treat each other, is a little bit the same like I treat my children in terms of how you raise them. So, of course, there need to be demands, consequence, and love. So there need to be demands in terms of the work. And if they don't work hard enough, there will be a consequence. Ultimately, they will not play, and they would like to play. And then, of course, they need to have a lot of love or belief or caring and all that. So you need to have that foundation of hard work and put everything into it. But the nice, I guess, is how you are as a person. I think I'm a positive, open guy.
So I love the idea of, he said, demands, you can call those expectations, agreements, clear consequences, all done in love. But your players need to know what the expectations are, and then you have to reinforce those every single day. And to me, that's what a manager does, is that you've got these things. The hard part is you can't just do one or the other. If you're a manager, then there's no vision, there's no goal, there's no belief, there's no like hope in the future, because you're so bogged down in the moment, the day-to-day, right? Even, and I appreciate someone mentioned earlier, I appreciate you catching, I was trying to be positive with that player. Really, what I was really trying to say was, stop playing backwards and go forward. We're trying to score goals here, man. Like, that's really what I want. But that would be a manager. I'd be angry at him. That's a manager moment. A leader, what I was trying to do is get him to, hey, you can do this. Try it. See what happens. So both are always happening. But for me, I love that idea, because if you can create clear expectations, get the players to agree on those, right? Get the consequences right, so they all know if I make a decision, I know the consequence that's coming, then you can get a chance to love them a little bit, right? Hold them to high standards. So again, day-to-day execution standards, consequences, over-communicate, over-communicate, over-communicate. Are you going to reinforce? You're going to tolerate, and then build relationships with your players. This is how we did it. Again, just an example. So this is probably way too small, but we thought in college soccer, there's 3 main areas that our guys operate in. They're off the field, they're in the classroom, and they're on the field. And so what we tried to do was, in little stuff like on the field, give 100% effort, everything you have, effort and training. And the other way to look at it, below the line behavior was inconsistent, showing up, not being present. And then, some of the stuff had consequences. So down here, we had consequences that we asked them, how do you want to handle this? And so the first way was biblically address the player and then get a friend, right? And then you come to the coaches if you need to. But you need to handle our business first. No matter what's going down, handle our business. And then we put in things like, you might have laundry for a few days, or there might be fitness. You might get suspended for X amount of days, and then you might get removed from the team. Now, we put those in because they're not running the show. I am, right? And our staff was. But we needed them to understand that if you break what we've agreed on, there's going to be a consequence. Now, in the end, we're going to do it in love. So depending on the consequence, you can get kicked off the team, literally. Or we just talk to you a little bit with another friend. So the idea, but it was clear, and we had them do this. Like, we had them write it down, and then you can see at the bottom what we do is have all the guys sign it. In this day and age, look, as a coach, you need to protect yourself. You need to document stuff. Look, you agreed to this. You understand that. You agreed to this. The other thing I tried to use was, again, thinking about a day-to-day and over-communicate, is I tried to get to know my players so that I could manage them day-to-day. So this is the Enneagram. This is like a real super dumbed-down version. Hand up if you know what the Enneagram is. Okay, great. So it's a personality test, and we would use this to understand how to communicate well to each individual player. And for example, one of our guys is a 1. Well, a lot of our, what's really cool is you don't know any of these guys. That's why I left their names up there, because you don't really care necessarily. But a 1, 3, and 8, that's pretty much what your team should be made of. You want guys who are perfectionists, that are driven, that do care about results, right? They want to get it right. Then you want guys who are achievers, right? Or athletes that are achievers and performers. And you want challengers, man. You want them to go like intense and big energy, need to be in control. Conflict is connection. That's what I am. I'm an 8. Right? I love that. You get in conflict with me? Let's go. I just feel closer. It's great. Achiever, Douglas, you know what I'm talking about. Low feelings, clear measurements, want to win. I can almost guarantee Mark Bloom is a 3. Almost guarantee that, right? He's an achiever. You could kind of hear it. He was going to overcome. Whatever came his way, he was going to set a standard. He was going to go for it. But the key thing is you need to know, if you know a day-to-day manager trying to get the best out of your players, so you want to be a leader and a manager, if you go to a number 1, 2 things going to happen. 1, in training, if you don't blow the whistle exactly right every single time and you let something go, they're going to be like, great. Because they're worried about the details. A lot of those guys are OCD. They're perfectionists. It bothers them if people aren't following the rules. The other thing is that they fear being wrong and avoid failure. So if I shout at him from the one side of the field, his tail's going to go between his legs because he's already saying, I'm wrong anyway. So what I would try and do is I knew which guys were 1s, and I would just go by and say, you got to start hitting the target, man. I know you can do it, but you got to hit the target. Just like that. One-on-one, quiet, no one heard it, because I knew he knew he wasn't hitting the target. So I was trying to tell him, you can do it. Look, keep your head down, hit the target the next time. Don't worry about scoring a goal. Just move to the next one. But I learned that from one of my guys. I saw him just cave in whenever I yell into him, and everybody thinks, you need to be a tough Division I coach. But what I discovered was, actually, I need to know my players well so that I can manage them in order to lead them really well down the road. The really fascinating thing is you always get these kind of outliers, which is kind of cool. And it was so funny because the guy in the middle, Ty, he super smart, 4.0, but not what do you say, book smart, not street smart. So he's the guy who like always wearing the wrong thing, all that kind of stuff, just every single time. Texts go out, you got to update your availability or whatever. Never updated his stuff. So finally got to the point where we put him in charge of stuff. because then he had to do it, and so he had to let everybody else know. But it made him think, I'm capable, I'm important, right? No surprise. So he knew what was going on. So we just trying to manipulate guys. This guy, Sam, super smart guy. Super smart guy. So I would make sure that, and I would always ask him in meetings, because I knew it let him stand out a little bit, made him special. He's pretty introverted, but it made him special, right? So I was trying to manage them day to day and lead them, okay? We had a thing called, so we had, last little trick that we probably used was, we used intangibles. And what we would do for the, when the guys came in for preseason, we'd say, okay, we're going to write on the board. We had a big whiteboard, and we had this thing, we had a screen that would drop down. So behind the screen on the whiteboard, I would tell the guys, you have 2 weeks to put down an intangible that you're going to bring. It has nothing to do with the field. Of course, you ask people, what's an intangible? Most of the guys have no idea what an intangible is, so you have to explain that part. So intangible is something that you can't see or touch, right, that you bring, right? So mine was energy and enthusiasm. So that was my responsibility as a coach. I was always going to bring that. So I wrote that up on the board. And all of the guys did the same thing. And we said, you got 2 weeks to lock that in. Once it's locked in, our expectation is you're going to bring that intangible every single day. Again, going back to the day-to-day versus the long-term leading. And what we would do was about every week, we would pull someone in and say, okay, at the end, we'd be doing a cool down or something. We'd say, all right, guys, we're going to do Douglas today. Douglas, what's your intangible? And he would tell us. And everybody in the group would say, okay, give us a this, or this. If he's doing and he's bringing his intangible. Is he bringing himself? Is he adding to our team in that way? So we created, hopefully, accountability, responsibility, and a willingness to be vulnerable and have to look someone else in the eye and say, and then one of our assistants would usually lead that conversation because it was easier if I wasn't doing it. And then we would say, okay, you gave him a sideways, what do you think? And guys started to get to the point where they would say stuff like, I just haven't seen it. Or he might be doing it to other people, but he hasn't done it to me as an individual. I just haven't seen a good picture of that. Or I don't think he's been bringing his full self or what he said. I just haven't seen it enough. Or I saw him the other day do this. So started to build that and get to a point where guys were willing to, in the face of it, right? But we opened the door to them. We opened the door to that. The other thing is we wanted to reinforce qualities that we wanted to see on the field. So we created these 2 stupid awards that made no sense, but that just based on the picture, would you say that the guys valued the stupid award we gave? Look at the cheese on the kid on the left. I mean, Lucas is, he's always got the cheese going, but he is. So Menti, right? That was a chain we got actually from one of our events. They were giving out free, horrific Menti chain jewelry. So that's plastic, whatever. So that was cooked. So that's not my word. That's our guys. We're like, we want to find something like, what do you think? A guy who had a game, like he just brought it. So we do cooked award. And if our staff, we would ask key players, we'd send out a little questionnaire, guys would kind of put it in, and we would make the final decision. Okay. So again, that's part of management, I think, is you're allowing feedback, but ultimately we see things that we want to try and reinforce. So our guys didn't know who voted for what. We just made sure that the right guy got put out there. So cooked was the guy who had a game, right? And hard hat was the blue collar guy, clearing balls off the line, getting stuck in, working, doing it. So it got silly because, there's a game, like we're thinking about the next game. Sometimes coaches, guys are like, Coach, what about hard hat? Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, okay. We'll go get it. Or like we didn't have it the next day at practice one time, and guys are like, let's just wait till tomorrow. Because we didn't have the stuff. We didn't have the chain and the stupid hat for the guys to put on. So, but then we knew we had something, right? Because they wanted it. They were bought in. But what we were trying to do was go from leading, having that vision, the core values, all that kind of stuff, and trickling it down into a day-to-day management. So there's a manager and a leader, and I don't think you can do either one. If you only manage, then you're just focused on the little day-to-day stuff, and guys lose sight of the long-term goal. If you only lead, then you're not reinforcing the daily stuff. So both those things have to happen. I'm just going to click through these real quick. One of my favorite people I've been listening to a lot is Jamie Winship. So him and his wife, Jamie and Donna Winship, they have a group called Identity Exchange. It's a Christian organization. And a big part of what they talk about, and I've seen this to be true, is that you have false identity, which tells us we're not enough. We have a true identity, who God made us to be. And really, I think our players and kids, and especially athletes, and where I've been working for the last 25 years in college, most of those young men and women that come there are trying to find who they're going to be in the future and what their identity is. And they're struggling with that a little bit because what they really think deep down is they're not enough right now. And so what we're trying to do is pull them in. And I think as a leader and a manager, every day you're trying to help them stay on track on their true identity. Don't go away from who you are, who God created you to be, and really fight the false identity. And I love these up here: scarcity versus being enough. Certainty, right? Which everybody wants to know. Am I going to make it? Am I going to be a good player? Am I going to have a good job? Am I going to get good grades? Am I going to find the girl or boy that I want? People going to like me? Are my parents going to love me if I make a mistake? Like, they all want certainty, but the reality is we operate in uncertainty. That's where faith comes in, right? There's a mystery there. And then perfection, especially this day and age, the pressure that young kids deal with now, social media, all those things, we all know that. The anxiety levels are super high. So if you can get them to understand that failing is part of the process and they can fight perfection, then we got a chance. And then ultimately, when you're connected to a group and you're operating in your true identity, you're others focused. And going back to what Ken talked about, that's what a team is, right? And so when you become others focused, because we've all got core values we're all fighting for, you have a real chance to be successful in so many things, and even on the field, which is what we want. So just wrapping up, I don't think either one of these are exclusive. You can't do one or the other. You have to do both. You have to keep the vision. You have to, no matter how it's going for you, you have to stay focused on that, but you can't tolerate little things day to day. So you have to find measures in order to get your standards and consequences. And you got to do those in love to keep them pushing towards that long-term vision and goal. Okay. All right. Any questions, comments?